federal takedown. A North Carolina man is one of two men accused in a global child exploitation ring. How the FBI says it's connected to a violent extremist network.
Summer like heat and storms when rain and wind threats move in and out of our area. Plus, the unsettled weather pattern we're tracking this weekend.
And more than a viral interview. The possible consequences for UNC over Bill Belichick in the headlines. We start tonight with a concerning story, one parents should certainly be paying attention to. A North Carolina man has been arrested for playing a large part in a global child exploitation ring. Thank you for joining us here at 7 o'clock. I'm Dan Haggerty. So this man, he's accused of threatening and manipulating young people, minors, online to self-harm themselves and others. WRAL's Carly Hands dug through some federal court records. Carly, U.S. attorneys are telling you that this man may even have been the leader of this organization.
Absolutely, one of the leaders for sure, and he's also accused of recruiting the group's inner members. So this extremist network is known as 764, and the group's purpose is to target vulnerable people, some as young as 13, forcing them to conduct acts of violence against themselves or other people. I want to show you a picture of 20-year-old Prasanna Paul. He's from High Point, North Carolina. According to the federal affidavit, he's accused of leading this group that targets children online and then forces them to produce explicit content under threat and manipulation. And that includes sexual abuse material and self-harm. U.S. attorneys say in some instances there would be images of victims cutting the names of 764 members in their bodies, setting themselves on fire, abusing their pets or siblings, and even suicide. So very disturbing details here. The defendant is accused of using an encrypted messaging service where insiders would then share that explicit material throughout the network. And a cybersecurity expert said this is the same kind of encrypted messaging platform that exists to protect companies.
So this case is a wake-up call for the tech industry. If you have a platform that enables anonymity and content sharing, you're part of the cybersecurity ecosystem, and your safeguards need to evolve constantly.
And federal law enforcement says that the defendant would exploit victims, some as young as 13 years old, and that he's accused of exploiting at least 8 different victims across different jurisdictions. Carly Haynes, WRAL News, live in Durham.
This is Brian Schrader in the WRAL Live Center, and all new at 7 o'clock, we have learned that Duke University says federal budget cuts, federal funding cuts likely mean job cuts at the university. They had a webinar for employees today, and here are some of the key takeaways. The school is looking into offering voluntary buyouts for employees. Right now, they're working to determine who might be eligible for those. They're also instituting a hiring freeze and eliminating vacant positions. The university also is suspending new building and also spending for renovations. They're only projects that are fully funded right now will go forward. This is a statement from Danielle Ennis, the executive vice president at Duke, saying we believe it's critical to take appropriate action sooner rather than later to lower costs and strategically realign our operations against lower federal funding levels going forward. He called it a very difficult time for the university.
Sure. All right, Brian, thank you. Hey, quickly want to get to some big news here reported by our state capitol team today. The North Carolina Court of Appeals ruled to flip political control of the State Board of Elections. So Republicans had tried to shift control of the board away from the governor, who's currently a Democrat, and a trial court had said at first that this is unconstitutional. You can't do that. But there was an appeals court that then overturned that decision. So this means as early as tomorrow, the Board of Elections could switch to GOP control. And that's a big deal when it comes to Jefferson Griffin. He's wrapped up in the big Supreme Court race with Allison Riggs. And that's the election that just won't seem to end.
If the board switches over to Republican control, we could see the board also switch its stance on that lawsuit and suddenly start siding with Jefferson Griffin in that case. How that might affect things in federal court, where that case is right now, still hard to tell.
If you've been watching us here at 7 o'clock, you know that case very well. Otherwise, you should check it out because there are a lot of ins and outs to this story as well is the details around this Jefferson Griffin, Allison Riggs case here. You can check out the WRAL.com story for more updates on this breaking news. Let's send things over to meteorologist Kat Campbell. Kat, we had record heat today.
90 degrees. That ties a record that's more than 100 years old. That was set in 1906 in Raleigh. What a day. It was very, very warm outside, a little bit more humid, and that comes with, as we often see, some of these pop-up storms. Not much here right now. We do have a shower that's popped up near Carr Lake at the moment, just north of Henderson, and the bulk of the thunderstorms have stayed west of us so far today, but there have actually been some severe storms earlier near Pilot Mountain. We've got a front that's stalled in southern Virginia, and that's why it's just the northern part of our viewing area with a chance of a stray storm today. The main event, though, is still off to our west, and this is what arrives as we get closer to the weekend. We have storm chances both days. It's not a washout. I'll have the all-important weekend forecast and our latest thoughts on rain timing coming up.
You bet. Thank you, Kat. All right, let's get you caught up on today's big headlines. Here are the 5 things you should know right now. So police are now searching for a third suspect in a kidnapping out of Garner. They're looking for Leo Estrada Hernandez. There's his picture right there. You may remember this story. A woman and her baby, they were taken from their home earlier this week. They were later found safe, fortunately, in Wake Forest. But 2 other suspects in this case were arrested. They appeared in court today. The FBI is offering a $10,000 reward for any information on this third suspect. The Raleigh man accused of beating his mother to death testified in court today. This is Chris McCullough. He says his defense is that he was under a spell during the killing and was up for 6 straight days on drugs. His parents had taken out a protective order against him a year before all of this happened. If convicted, McCullough could face life in prison without parole. Today, the State House passed a bill that bans DEI efforts in state government and public schools. The discussion was interrupted here by protesters multiple times, actually, during the discussion. Democrats warn that this could end programs supporting minority-owned businesses and women veterans. Republicans argue that DEI programs promote reverse discrimination. The bill now goes to the Senate. The Ava Gardner Museum in Smithfield just lost some of its federal funding. It was a grant from the Institution of Museum and Library Science. It funded preservation of the museum's materials. It also paid for equipment needed to display those items. The REAL ID deadline is just 1 week away, and look at the people standing in line to try and beat it. Now, you're going to need to travel on some domestic flights. You're going to need this ID. The deadline has been pushed back many, many times, but now there is a hard deadline of May 7th. So far, only about half of North Carolinians actually have one, and that's one of the reasons behind those long lines you saw at the DMV locations across the state. There is a dash to get them. Let's talk a minute about the DMV, shall we? I mean, I know those 3 little letters can put a pit in your stomach when you hear them, the long lines, the canceled appointments. It is a mess. There's no way around that. Today, a man in Harnett County actually waited in line so long in the heat that he passed out. This has been a problem for years, but there is a new head now of the DMV, and he feels that he can turn the whole thing around. WRAL's Sean Gallagher has the story.
Don't let the camping chairs fool you. It's no picnic at the DMV right now.
I saw you brought like a little chair. You're pretty experienced at this, huh?
Because this is my sort of thing. I was here till 5 o'clock yesterday and I did not get seen.
And then today you're just starting over.
And today I'm starting over. Wow. And I don't even know if I'll get in.
Across the state, you'll see long lines like this at DMVs.
I just feel like we don't have to be living like this.
The North Carolina DMV has a new commissioner, so we're asking the big question. How can the DMV be better? And we're looking to talk to people who are doing something very familiar outside DMVs across the state, waiting.
Some type of virtual queue, right? I mean, respect people's time.
Having like a kiosk would be really cool.
It's almost a therapeutic exercise for people in line writing out their gripes. And honestly, what else are they going to do?
I've been here since 5 a.m. this morning.
Almost everyone in line with an idea.
I think they could extend their hours. This line is pretty long.
I mean, we need to put more resources to the DMV.
People like Kathleen Barden, where these seconds waiting in line truly feel like life or death.
That I am trying to get my real ID so I can fly to California to be with my parents as my mom dies from cancer. I can get on the plane, but I'm not sure if I can come home.
May 7th is looming for people like Barden to get a real ID so they can fly. Just add it to the pile of a DMV already dealing with an immense workload it can't keep up with. Appointments are booked out for months. People lining up early are waiting hours and still aren't being seen.
All of these could be resolved if there was more staff.
The DMV says Paul Tyne won't be available for interviews until next week, but in a statement, he laid out his goals, which fall in line with what these folks want, addressing wait times and staffing challenges while improving customer satisfaction. Because these people are willing to wait, so long as it's reasonable.
I think they should implement remote waiting, because that would be better if we could get like text updates on our phone instead of waiting out here.
Because right now, the DMV is driving them mad. In Raleigh, Sean Gallagher, WRAL News.
The DMV is driving them mad. Good line there, Sean. So let's talk about something that there's been a lot of talk about. It's the internet drama over UNC coach Bill Belichick and his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson. But let's cut through the gossip, shall we, and talk about the possible consequences, the real consequences of what's been playing out over the last few weeks. Let's take a trip to Murph's Turf after the break. Oh boy. What a week in the world of UNC football. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, there's been a lot of talk about the role of Bill Belichick's girlfriend. She's 24, he's 72. That age gap makes for some juicy gossip, but there's a lot more to it. You see, CBS News released an interview with Belichick on Sunday where he was trying to promote his new book, but Tony DeCopel pivoted for a moment and asked how the couple met. Then Hudson chimed in and said, "We're not talking about this." This has created a lot of opinions about Hudson, about Belichick, about UNC and the football program. Not many about his book, though, which kind of brings us to our quote of the day. Getting clicks is easier than getting wins. That comes from Bill Belichick's literary agent in a statement that went out today, essentially calling the CBS story low-hanging fruit. In fact, a lot of people use statements to say stuff today. The book people want us to focus on football and books, not girlfriends and awkward interview moments. Belichick wants us to know that Jordan was just doing her job when she chimed in, keeping the interview focused on his book. And CBS wants us to know that they never agreed to only talk about the book. I know this all sounds like dumb internet drama, but in reality, there are some possible real consequences to all of this. For that part of the story, I spoke to WRAL investigative sports reporter Brian Murphy in a trip to Murph's Turf. All right, Murph, let's talk, buddy. And first, we should, specify this is not TMZ, even though we are literally stealing their entire style. But, stories are both interesting and important. We know why this story is interesting because we have a legendary coach take an unexpected job with his unexpectedly young girlfriend kind of coming along with him. But why is this important to people?
Well, Dan, I think, UNC has turned its entire football program over to Bill Belichick. They're paying him $10 million a year, perhaps up to $50 million over the next 5 years. And they've given him carte blanche. He's hired his sons. He's hired his good friend as the general manager. And now all of a sudden, his 24-year-old girlfriend is also making decisions that may be having influence over the program.
So let's talk about that just a little bit because let's give the full picture of her role. Yes, she is the girlfriend of Bill Belichick, but she also does operate in a professional capacity and did so even before he took this job with UNC.
Yeah, she owns a bunch of companies in Massachusetts, several of them related to Bill Belichick. She also owns a bunch of trademarks that are adjacent to Bill Belichick as well. And she has made, she's made her career out of being a social media influencer. She has a big following, and now she's clearly playing a role in public relations.
And we see that with emails particularly.
Yes, we've seen Bill Belichick ask that she be CC'd on emails, copied on emails that get sent to him about, his image or ways they want to publicize the program.
Now, emails when you're with an NFL organization, emails with your private company to private company are one thing. This is a public institution, so we can request the emails that go back and forth. And now there's this Athletic article that is claiming that those emails are kind of a smoking gun as to why UNC suddenly had the Hard Knocks deal with the NFL and HBO, and then seem to overnight lose that deal, and the Athletic seems to be pointing the blame to her.
Yeah, they cite industry sources saying that she is the reason her need for more control or her presence in the project is why UNC didn't become the first college team to be on Hard Knocks. What the emails show is that Carolina was ready. They had a press release ready, graphics ready to roll out that they were going to be on Hard Knocks, and then suddenly Bill Belichick didn't approve, and it didn't happen. We've also seen emails from her that indicate this is how we want to roll out the hire of Steven Belichick to be the defense coordinator. She also emailed some people in the athletic department saying, hey, we need to get some comments taken down that are calling Bill Belichick a predator. So she has played a role in deciding maybe how the coverage of the program is internally.
Now, I want to play devil's advocate to a certain narrative that she is controlling these things. It's hard to make this assumption that she's the one calling the shots when we have seen Belichick be in charge his entire career. We've never seen it. There's never been this impression that he was being manipulated by somebody.
Yeah, and as general manager said, this is a coach-driven program. I mean, the assistant coaches haven't even talked. Belichick is in charge of this entire operation, and ultimately he's going to be judged on whether he wins games on Saturdays in the fall or doesn't. I think all of this Jordan Hudson talk is going to melt away as we get closer and closer to football season, and Belichick has a record to stand on. If they go 10-2 or 11-1, it's going to be one story. If they go 4-8, it's going to be an entirely different story based on what they do on the field.
You know, and he was brought in here to bring eyeballs to the program, right? To win games, but to also get this some national attention and show UNC football. So if he does do what he's supposed to do and win some football games, is this necessarily a bad thing?
I'm not sure Carolina wanted this kind of attention, but now that they have it, it could be a good thing, right? The ACC is going to pay teams in accordance with how well they do on television, and how well you do on television is based on what networks you get on, and the more interest there is in Belichick, the more interest there is in Hudson, the more interest there is in the Tar Heels, the better networks, the better time slots, the better games UNC is going to get.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Murph.
That music, always such a good vibe. All right, let's take a look ahead at the dual Doppler 5000 radar. You can see some showers off to our northwest. That's where there's been the better chance of rain and storms today. That chance much lower as you head south and east in our viewing area. We don't expect that to change yet. Let's talk about the coming days, though. I know there's a lot of interest in the weekend. For tomorrow, minimal storm chances. It's a 20% chance. I wouldn't worry much about it. Friday, a 40% chance between 4 and 9 o'clock, maybe a little bit of rain in the morning. Saturday, the best chance for storms shifting a bit later in the day, a 40% chance during the day, but as we get later into the night hours, that chance goes up to 60%. It looks like 4 to 11 p.m. will be the biggest time period to watch Saturday. Only a 20% chance for rain in the morning for the Race for the Cure. Great news for that, and great news for the Wings Over Wayne Air Show Saturday, the way it looks now, but we'll get in the high-resolution model data tomorrow, so check in for an update. Sunday, it's just too difficult to tell at this point, to be entirely honest with you, any definitive time period where rain looks more likely than the other. Looking ahead, though, we do know that this front gets here on Saturday, and that's what will bring the better chance of rain and thunderstorms our way. Tomorrow, the front that's in Virginia lifts well to the north. We are back to 90 for the high. Minimal rain chances until we get into the overnight hours into Friday morning. Then we're at a 30% chance, so still not significant. But later in the afternoon and into the early evening Friday, we could see some scattered storms develop. The main event will still come with the cold front itself, and that would arrive later Saturday evening. Notice how rain chances really go up as you get toward 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock on Saturday. That's subject to change. Again, check in for that update tomorrow for the high-resolution data. A live look at Goldsboro tonight. We want to welcome our friends in Goldsboro back to the WRAL live camera network. This camera was down for a little while. We're happy to have it back up and running. It's still 85 at RDU right now, 83 in Cary, Apex, Holly Springs, and Garner, 82 in Wake Forest, and 79 in Chapel Hill at the moment. Things were nice and quiet for us this evening. Later tonight, we'll watch for perhaps still a remaining shower or storm through midnight, and then we stay warm after that for a few more days. As rain chances go up this weekend, temperatures will start to back off. Highs will be back in the 70s, lows in the 50s, and there is some pretty significant uncertainty in regards to next week forecast, so stay tuned for updates on that one as well.
Will do. Thank you, Kat. One last thing for you tonight. Did you know that a cat ran for Raleigh mayor last year? No, you didn't? Me neither, actually, but Teddy here isn't just a cute face. He's got an important message for you, and we're going to share it after the break. One last thing we want to mention for you tonight. It turns out we all overlooked someone in the Raleigh mayoral race back in November, and I'm talking about Teddy, the orange cat. At the time, everybody told him, Teddy, what are you doing? A cat can't run for mayor. And they were right. A cat mayor is ridiculous and totally not allowed. But even though Teddy was a total failure at the ballot box, the real mayor, Janet Cowell, let him sign a proclamation today. And that's not a joke. That's the official government name of this document. And it honors Adopt a Shelter Pet Day, which is, coincidentally, today. For the last few days, the Wake County Animal Shelter had a special deal going to increase the adoptions there. And that campaign ended today. And most shelters in our area are closed by this time of night. But they will be back open tomorrow. The ASPCA reports that more than 6 million animals enter shelters every year in the United States. And every year, about 4 million of them get adopted. But that is a difference of 2 million animals. You know, shelters often get too crowded. We've seen it so many times in Wake County. At least twice last year, they came dangerously close to having to euthanize animals. Look, everyone loves a puppy or a kitten, and I get that. But if you're able to bring a pet into your home, you should consider adoption on an official holiday or not. Thank you for making WRAL your choice for local news. Our next newscast is tonight. That's at 10 o'clock on Fox 50 and at 11 o'clock on WRAL. Until then, thank you for being with us here at 7. We'll leave you with this gorgeous view of Lake Gaston and the sun beautifully setting over in the horizon. Until tonight, have a great one.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.